my fantasy friends. I'm the Raging Redhead Cam Stewart from HotRoster today, and Wednesday means one thing and one thing only, an endless night of action in the association. 24 teams hit the court tonight, including LeBron James and the Cavs, but let's put aside the King for a moment, along with his beef with Sir Charles Barkley, and focus on more pressing matters that require our attention, namely some of those matchups featured on the HotRoster cards for Wednesday night. Let's dig in. The first matchup that I'm teasing for tonight features two players selected to start in this year's All-Star game for the Eastern Conference, and they aren't necessarily your household names. Both Jimmy Butler of the Chicago Bulls and the Greek Freak of the Milwaukee Bucks square off against each other on HotRoster. The Greek Freak opens up as a 2-point favorite, which I think is enough for me to give the edge to Butler in this one. The Bulls are in Oklahoma City tonight playing against the Thunder, a team that loves to push the pace as they rank amongst the top 6 in that category. This style of play by the Thunder should afford Butler more volume and opportunities, which a player of his caliber should be able to make the most of. I know at some point in Butler's last performance against the Thunder, he went 0 for 6 from the floor and tallied only 1 point. But it's worth reminding people that he's playing through an illness in that game, which actually ended up losing him 10 pounds. So yeah, he was doing pretty bad there. Meanwhile, the Bucks are off to Utah to play the Jazz, where the Greek Freak is likely to be matched up against Rudy Gobert. Not good. This is going to be a big challenge for the young Bucks star, as Gobert's defensive skill set should limit the Greek Freak's ability to score and grab those precious rebounds, which quite frankly is where you make your points on HotRoster. That's why I'm going with Jimmy in this matchup. Next up, HotRoster pits one player who probably should have been named a starter in the All-Star game, aka Isaiah Thomas of the Celtics, against a guy who maybe shouldn't have been named one, and Steph Curry of the Warriors. Now, semantics of the All-Star game aside, Thomas opens up as a huge 3-point favorite in this matchup, which tempts me to go against him, especially given the way Curry's playing lately. Over his last 12 games, Steph has averaged 28 points, 7 assists, and 4 boards to boot. But if you thought those numbers were great, wait till you get a load of Thomas. IT2 over that same stretch has averaged a ridiculous 34 points with 7 assists and 3 boards. Thomas has actually scored at least 20 points in 32 straight contests and tallied 35 or more in 9 of his last 15. That's insane, people. And tonight, while Curry is back at home in Charlotte, Thomas has a date with the Raptors in Boston, which I know might once again tempt you to take Curry, especially since he grew up in Charlotte and dominates when he plays there. But this game against the Raptors means so much for Boston. I think we get the best out of Thomas tonight. Keep your eyes on Steph as well, people. He did miss the Warriors' last game with a stomach flu and could be out again for tonight. But if he plays and this matchup is available on HotRoster, I'm taking Thomas all the way to the bank. And last but not least, two other Eastern Conference All-Stars featured on HotRoster cards tonight include Paul Millsap of the Hawks and Paul George of the Pacers. Both guys are coming off their own respective monster games. George crushed the Rockets with 33 points, 9 boards, and 3 assists on Sunday, while on the same day, Millsap went bonkers as he tallied 37 points, 19 boards, and 8 assists in the Hawks' quadruple overtime win over the Knicks. Now, I know you think Millsap is in line for another 60 minutes tonight against the Heat in Miami. That's not going to happen. Plus, in many ways, his effort against the Knicks was also a bit of an isolated incident. Over his last 4 games, Millsap has averaged 20 points and 9 boards. And when you compare that to Paul George, those numbers just aren't that great. It seems as if the Pacers All-Star has turned a corner lately. In each of his last 4, George has tallied at least 30 points while averaging 6 blocks to boot. 6 boards to boot. Fuck. Fuck, man. So much fucking reading. Okay. Where does he want to pick it up? There. We can go there. Now, I don't think. Okay. Yeah. While on that same day, Millsap went bonkers. He tallied 37 points, 19 boards, and 8 assists in the Hawks' quadruple overtime win over the Knicks. Now, I don't think Millsap is in line for another 60 minutes tonight against the Heat in Miami. Plus, in many ways, his effort against the Knicks was also a bit of an isolated incident. Over his last 4 games, he's averaged 20 points and 9 boards, but when you compare that to Paul George, those numbers are just not great, as it seems the Pacers All-Star has turned a corner big time. In each of his last 4 starts, George has tallied at least 30 points while averaging 6 boards. Tonight, George and the Pacers are primed for a huge night in Orlando as they play a Magic team that ranks 22nd in the NBA in defensive efficiency. While the Hawks' opponent, the Miami Heat, they rank ranked 6th in the league in that same category. Then add to the fact Millsap will be in tough against the Heat starting center Hassan Whiteside, and it's just hard to love him tonight. That's why I'd pick against Millsap on all Hot Roster cards, and I'll take George to win any matchup on Hot Roster. Well, that's it for today, my fantasy friends. Make sure you tune in tomorrow when we take a look at some of the matchups available on Hot Roster for Thursday's huge slate of NHL games. And for those of you who don't know what Hot Roster is, you gotta check it out. Go to HotRoster.com, download the app, give it a try. It's like no other fantasy game you've ever played. And then for help winning the game, check out Hot Roster today with me and my buddy Gary and Thorne every weekday at 4:30 Eastern, only on the Fantasy Sports Network. For Hot Roster now, I'm Cam Stewart, and I'll see you later on.